Hello everyone, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. So today's episode is a little bit different to my previous episodes. I'll be talking about entertainment and film, and the reason for that is in anticipation of the new Matrix film that is coming out. It's the fourth Matrix film, and so I wanted to talk about the original trilogy a bit today. The original trilogy of the Matrix. Now, talking about a movie is not something that I would usually do on this channel, but the Matrix Trilogy was no ordinary set of films. There's a message behind the Matrix films that is very relevant and very important to grasp for those who are on a path of spiritual awakening. And what I mean when I say that it's relevant to spiritual awakening is that the Matrix begs the question whether we live in an illusion, whether we live in a false reality that is necessary to see beyond in order to be free. So, with this video today, I will be posing the question, do we live in a Matrix? How can we wake up from it? And just what is the Matrix? And I'll be answering those questions on a red couch, no less, although it's not leather. So, the synchronicity is not quite complete. But we will be going down the rabbit hole and revealing what the Matrix truly is, and if we are indeed living within it. So, when I first saw the very first Matrix film that was released in 1999, I was still in school, in primary school, and a friend of mine came up to me one day and he told me about this really cool action film that he'd seen. And I wanted to see it based on that. And I asked my mum if we could go to the movies and see The Matrix, and she said yes, and we went to the cinema, and I was expecting to see just another 90s action flick. But what I was confronted with when I watched The Matrix for the first time was something very different. And it had a huge effect on me. No other movie has altered my perception of the world the way The Matrix has. I found myself questioning for the first time whether this world that we live in is real or not. Whether there is another world which is more real, which is behind this one, which we need to make our way to somehow and wake up from the illusory world. And ever since I've seen it, I can't put my finger on it, but I've always felt like The Matrix was more than just a film, and the whole trilogy were more than just films, that there was a message behind the films that was pointing to something true, something that we needed to know about the nature of our reality. Not that the characters or the plot was true, but that in some sense there was an illusion that we needed to escape from. And that haunted me. That idea haunted me through my adolescence. And I always thought that the Wachowskis were trying to tell us something. They were trying to wake people up from a real Matrix. And that there were hints in the movie about what that real Matrix might be. Much the same way as the hackers in the movies left clues for people who wanted to wake up. And so, as I got older, I went down the rabbit hole, as it were, and I delved further into the movies and their symbolism, and I found that there were a lot of Easter eggs to do with mysticism and esotericism and religion, and I investigated those further, and I finally found one Easter egg in the Matrix Trilogy which really summarizes what the true Matrix is and how we can escape from it. And that Easter egg is at the end of the final movie of the three in the trilogy, at the end of the Matrix Revolutions, when the end credits begin to roll, a song plays. The name of the song is Navrus. It's a collaboration between Don Davis and Juno Reactor, And the song opens with a chant. And the chant goes like this. Asato masad gamaya. Tamaso ma jyotir gamaya. Mrityo ma amritam gamaya. And when I first heard that verse, I had no idea what it was until I researched it further. And what I learned was that that passage was a very ancient, very profound piece of writing that dates back to the 6th or 7th century before the Common Era. And it comes from the Upanishads of the Vedanta traditions. And it is a mantra that describes the illusory nature of reality and the way to get free from it. The original mantra is in Sanskrit, of course, but there is an English translation to that, and there's varying translations of the original Sanskrit, but the English translation roughly goes something like this. From ignorance lead me to truth, from darkness lead me to light, from death lead me to immortality. And what this mantra is really trying to tell us is that we live in a world which we perceive a certain way. And we perceive the universe in which we live in an illusory way. And we need to get past the illusion and see existence as it truly is. And when we do that, we will see existence as something deeper than just this world of limitations. We will see existence as the primal absolute from which all things came, the true nature of reality, Brahman, sometimes referred to as God. But it is really the limitless being that is at the heart of everything, including our own consciousness. And when we can tap into that, and we can reveal that and identify with it, and see the universe as that, then we will be free from the Matrix. Or at least we will have woken ourselves up from the Matrix so that we can free ourselves from its fetters. And in Vedanta and in Hinduism, the Matrix has a different name. It's called Maya. This is the name that is given to the illusory nature of reality. This is anything that is placing conditions on reality, a series of separate things that are not connected to each other, which have their own independent existence. But of course, that's not the way things really are. Everything that we see, whether it's other people or other things, are all connected into a greater unity. And any seeming independent or individual nature of anything is false, because there is nothing that is truly, absolutely disconnected from anything else, although that is the way that we perceive the world. And the other great illusion of Maya is that we perceive this world as something solid, as something that is reliable, something that will last, whereas everything in physical existence will one day pass away. Everything turns to dust, and nothing that we can rely on in this world will ever satisfy us, because it must all come to an end. And any satisfaction that we find in anything in the world will be imperfect, because ultimately that thing that we place our sense of well-being in attaining is reliant on a certain set of conditions that will one day change, and then that thing that we wanted so badly will pass away. And so that is the illusion that we're stuck in. We grasp at things that are liminal and limited as though they lasted forever. and we behave as though we're separate from the world, when in fact everything is one. And that is the essence of the illusion in our perception, that is Maya. And that is what we need to get free from. Because seeing ourselves as separate and seeing ourselves as only inhabiting a very specific set of conditions limits us. It oppresses us. It means that we cannot fully express our true nature, which is unlimited awareness, unlimited potential, something divine. And so we need to begin to overcome those conditions and see ourselves and see reality beyond those conditions. The only truth that we can find is in that inner light. The only truth that we can find is in something which reveals the divinity of the universe. And that is the objective of religion and of spirituality. And that is why adopting a spiritual practice is so important, because we can develop techniques to discover that inner divinity, to discover the true nature of reality, to wake ourselves up from the matrix. We all have a strong instinct to be free. I live in a democracy. The whole narrative that gave rise to the kind of society that I live in now is one where the point of history is for the human race to become free and to gain liberties as history progresses. So there is this strong desire to find liberation. And we look for liberation socially and economically, and those things are important because they're all steps towards overcoming fetters and understanding liberation better as life goes on. But ultimately, if you attain financial liberation, for example, then if you lose your job, or you lose your property, or you lose your source of wealth, then you no longer have that financial independence. You no longer have that economic freedom. If you have social freedom because you live in a society that enshrines civil rights, that gets taken away from you if, say, a conservative Christian government gets voted in, and then suddenly the law changes and you don't have those rights anymore because they were conditional upon legislation. And really, there's only one form of freedom which does not rely on the world, which cannot be taken away from us if the world changes. And that is the liberation of knowing our true nature, of knowing that what we truly are is pure divine awareness that is unconditioned, that is self-referential, that is self-satisfying, that is self-sufficient, that needs nothing but itself, and is already intrinsically free. And once we can get in touch with that, that is a liberation that is truly profound. And it will enrich our understanding of the concept of freedom as a whole, and the world will be better for it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I will continue this theme in a subsequent video. I'll continue discussing this real matrix, real, for lack of a better word, that we find ourselves in. And having identified it, how we can become free of it. So until then, stay awake.